Taeho Kim sat in the back row of Ms. Park's science class, trying his best to pay attention. He was 13 years old, with messy black hair that never stayed combed and a thin frame that made his school uniform look 2 sizes too big. The classroom windows were open on this warm spring day, letting in a gentle breeze that carried the sweet smell of cherry blossoms. Ms. Park wrote on the blackboard, chalk dust floating in the sunbeams that cut through the room. "Today we will learn about chemical reactions," she said, turning to face the class of 30 students. Taeho felt his nose begin to itch. The cherry blossom pollen always made his allergies act up. He rubbed his nose, hoping the feeling would pass. The last thing he wanted was to sneeze loudly in the middle of class. Next to him, his best friend Junho passed him a note. "Want to play basketball after school?" it read. Taeho nodded with a smile, then felt the tickle in his nose grow stronger. "The most basic example of a chemical reaction is combustion," Ms. Park continued, drawing a simple diagram. "This is what happens when something burns." The itching in Taeho's nose became unbearable. He pinched his nostrils, trying to stop what was coming. It didn't work. Taeho's breath caught as the sneeze built up. A few students turned to look at him. Achoo! What happened next would change Taeho's life forever. Instead of the normal spray that comes with a sneeze, bright orange flames shot from Taeho's mouth and nose. The fire streaked 3 feet across the room, singeing the corner of Jiwoo's notebook in the next row. The flames lasted only a second, but everyone saw them. For a moment, the classroom was completely silent. 30 pairs of eyes stared at Taeho in shock. Even Ms. Park stood frozen, the chalk slipping from her fingers and breaking on the floor. Taeho touched his lips in confusion. They felt warm but not burned. I don't know what happened," he whispered. Then the chaos began. "Fire! He breathed fire!" screamed Do-hyun, jumping from his seat and backing away from Taeho. "It's a trick," yelled someone else. "Did everyone see that?" Mina asked, her voice high with excitement. Ms. Park finally found her voice. "Everyone remain calm." But her hands shook as she put down her teaching materials. She looked at Taeho with wide, disbelieving eyes. Junho scooted his chair away from Taeho, then seemed to think better of it and moved back. "Are you okay?" he asked in a low voice. Before Taeho could answer, the building shook. It wasn't an earthquake, it was more like something very heavy had landed on the roof. Dust fell from the ceiling tiles. The fire alarm began to wail, its shrill sound adding to the confusion. But it wasn't because of Taeho's fiery sneeze. Something else had triggered it. "Line up by the door," Ms. Park ordered, trying to take control of the situation. "We need to evacuate the building." The students scrambled to form a line, many of them keeping their distance from Taeho. He stood up slowly, feeling dizzy and confused. What was happening to him? How had fire come out of his mouth? And what had landed on the roof? As the class filed into the hallway, they joined streams of students from other rooms, all heading toward the exits. Teachers tried to maintain order, but whispers spread quickly through the crowd. A boy in class 3B breathed fire. "Like a dragon." "I heard something landed on the roof." Principal Yoon's voice came over the school speakers. "All students and staff, please proceed calmly to the schoolyard. This is not a drill." Taeho felt everyone's eyes on him as they walked. Some students pointed. Others took out their phones to record him. Junho stayed by his side, looking worried but loyal. "I don't know what's happening," Taeho said quietly to his friend. "I just sneezed." "Maybe you have superpowers," Junho suggested, trying to lighten the mood. Like in the comics, they reached the schoolyard where students lined up by class. The spring sun shone brightly overhead, making Taeho squint. That's when he saw it, and realized he wasn't the strangest thing at school today. A massive creature stood in the center of the schoolyard. It was at least 12 feet tall, with a long neck and powerful limbs covered in shimmering blue-green scales. 2 great wings were folded against its back, and its long tail swished back and forth, keeping curious students at bay. It was a dragon. A real dragon, and it wasn't alone. 2 more dragons circled overhead, their massive wings casting moving shadows across the schoolyard. Teachers tried to keep students in line, but many broke ranks, either backing away in fear or moving closer in fascination. Some held up phones to record the impossible sight. Principal Yoon approached the dragon, his steps slow and hesitant. He was a brave man, Taeho thought. We come in peace," the principal said, his voice barely carrying across the now quiet yard. The dragon lowered its head, bringing its face level with the principal's. Its eyes were unlike any animals Taiho had ever seen. Intelligent, ancient, and somehow kind. Then something even stranger happened. The dragon didn't open its mouth, but Taiho heard its voice clearly in his head. From the gasps around him, he knew everyone else heard it too. "We come in peace as well." The dragon's voice resonated in their minds. "I am Haru, emissary of the Stellar Draconic Alliance." The dragon's gaze moved from the principal, scanning the crowd until it found Taiho. Their eyes met, and Taiho felt a strange connection, like recognizing someone he had never met. "We have been searching for you," Haru said, still speaking directly into everyone's minds. "The boy who breathes fire, he carries our genetic signature." Ms. Park put a protective hand on Taiho's shoulder. "What do you mean?" she asked. "Your species and ours share an ancient connection," Haru explained. "Sometimes a human child is born with dormant draconic genes. Today those genes awakened in this boy." Whispers erupted among the students and teachers. Taiho felt his legs go weak. Draconic genes? How was that possible? The school gates burst open as police cars and emergency vehicles arrived. Behind them came a familiar car, his parents' blue sedan. Taiho's mother and father ran into the schoolyard, pushing through the crowd. "Taiho," his mother Sora called, her face pale with worry. She reached him and pulled him into a tight hug. "Are you okay?" The school called and said there was an emergency. His father Minho stood protectively in front of them, staring up at the dragon. "What is happening here?" he demanded. "What do you want with my son?" Haru lowered his massive head in what seemed like a bow. "We do not come to take him from you. We come to help him understand what he is becoming." "And what is that?" Taiho's father asked, his voice shaking slightly. "Something wonderful," Haru replied. "A bridge between two worlds that have been separate for too long." Taiho looked up at the dragon, then at his worried parents, then at the crowd of stunned students and teachers. His ordinary life had just gone up in flames, literally, and he had no idea what would happen next. But as he stood there, with the spring breeze carrying cherry blossom petals around them and dragons circling overhead, one thing was clear: nothing would ever be the same again. 3 hours after the dragons arrived, Taiho sat in the school library with his parents, Principal Yoon, and 2 government officials who had arrived by helicopter. The library had been cleared of students and turned into a makeshift meeting room. Outside, police kept curious crowds and news reporters at bay. Haru, the blue-green dragon, had somehow made himself smaller, now only 7 feet tall instead of 12, so he could fit inside the building. He sat on his haunches at one end of a long table, his tail curled neatly around his feet. The 2 other dragons remained outside, causing quite a stir in the neighborhood. "Let me understand this correctly," said Director Kang, a stern woman from the National Intelligence Service. "You're saying dragons are real, they come from space, and somehow this boy is part dragon?" Haru nodded his scaled head. "That is correct, though simplified. We are not dragons as your myths describe us. We are the Draconis, an interstellar species that visited Earth thousands of years ago." Taiho's mother, Sora, held her son's hand tightly. "But how could Taiho be part dragon? We're just normal people." "The genetic markers can remain dormant for many generations," Haru explained. His voice still came directly into their minds, which Taiho found both amazing and unsettling. "Your son carries genes from when our kinds intermingled long ago." Taiho's father, Minho, frowned. "You're saying your people and humans had children together?" "Yes," Haru said simply. "We can change our forms, though it takes great energy. Some of our explorers stayed on Earth and took human form. They fell in love, had families. Their descendants carry certain genetic markers." The second government official, Dr. Yuna Bayek from the Science Ministry, had been typing notes on her tablet. She looked up with keen interest. "Can you prove this scientifically?" "A simple DNA test will show unusual markers in Taiho's genetic code," Haru said. "But the proof is also in what happened today. No ordinary human can produce fire from within their body." Everyone turned to look at Taiho, who shifted uncomfortably in his chair. He hadn't spoken much since the incident. His mind was racing with too many questions. Will I turn into a dragon?" he finally asked, his voice small. Haru's eyes, golden with vertical pupils, fixed on Taiho with a gentle gaze. "Not fully, no. But you will develop certain abilities as your draconic genes express themselves. The fire was just the beginning. Is it dangerous?" Taiho's mother asked, squeezing his hand tighter. "Without training, yes," Haru admitted. "That is why we came. We have been monitoring Earth, waiting for signs of awakening draconic genes. When Taeho sneezed fire, it created an energy signature we could detect from our observation post near your moon. Principal Yoon, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke up. What happens now? Taeho is still a student at this school. He has classes, exams, a normal life. And we wish for that to continue, Haru said. We do not want to disrupt his human life, but he will need training to control his abilities. We propose teaching him after school hours and on weekends. Director Kang leaned forward. This is a matter of national security. The boy should be placed in a government facility where— No, Taeho's father interrupted firmly. My son is not going to be locked away in some lab. He stays with his family. Haru nodded in agreement. Separating him from his family and normal life would be harmful. Draconic genes respond to emotional states. Stress and fear can trigger uncontrolled manifestations. As if to prove this point, Taeho noticed his fingernails had begun to glow orange, like metal in a forge. He gasped and shook his hands. What's happening? Stay calm, Haru instructed. Take deep breaths. Picture cool water flowing through your veins. Taeho closed his eyes and did as he was told. After a few moments, he felt the heat in his hands subside. When he opened his eyes, his nails looked normal again, you see, Haru said to the others. He needs guidance, not isolation. Dr. Beck nodded thoughtfully. I agree, but we should establish a research team to document this phenomenon. This discovery changes our understanding of human evolution and extraterrestrial contact. The door to the library opened, and Junho peeked in. Despite the police guards, he had somehow managed to sneak in. Sorry, he said when everyone turned to look at him. I just wanted to make sure Taeho was okay. Taeho felt a rush of gratitude for his friend. I'm okay, he called out. Principal Yoon sighed. Mr. Park, this is a private meeting. Let him stay, Taeho said suddenly. He's my best friend. I want him to know what's happening to me. After a moment's hesitation, the adults agreed. Junho slipped into the chair next to Taeho, his eyes wide as he stared at Haru. So you're really from space? Junho asked the dragon. Our current home is a planet orbiting the star you call Sirius, Haru confirmed. But we have outposts throughout this galaxy. Cool, Junho whispered, then turned to Taeho. Are you scared? Taeho thought about it. Yes, he admitted. But also get excited? I don't know. It's a lot to take in. Director Kang cleared her throat. We need to discuss how to handle this publicly. The media is already swarming outside. Dragons landing at a middle school isn't something we can keep quiet. We do not wish to hide, Haru said. The time has come for our species to reconnect openly. Taeho is the first of what we hope will be many bridges between our worlds. The first? Dr. Bach asked. You mean there are others like him? We believe so, Haru said. As human population has grown, the chances of draconic genes expressing themselves has increased. Taeho is the first we have found, but there may be others whose abilities have not yet manifested. Taeho's mother looked worried. Will they all breathe fire? Each manifestation is unique, Haru explained. Some might develop scales, others wings. Some might gain mental abilities like our telepathy. Taeho tried to imagine having wings or scales. Just yesterday, he had been a normal boy worried about math tests and basketball practice. Now he was sitting with a dragon from outer space, learning he might grow wings. It seemed impossible. I have a question, Taeho said, finding his voice stronger now. Why did this happen today? Why did I suddenly sneeze fire? Draconic genes often activate during puberty, Haru explained. The hormonal changes in your body triggered the dormant genetic code. The pollen in the air irritated your fire-producing glands, which had just formed. I have fire glands? Taeho asked, touching his throat. Small ones, yes, near your lungs, Haru said. They will grow as you develop. Junho nudged Taeho. That's so cool, he whispered. Principal Yoon stood up. I need to address the school staff and students' parents. They deserve to know what's happening. I will come with you, Haru offered. Seeing me may help them understand this is not a threat. As they prepared to leave, Taeho's father put a hand on his son's shoulder. No matter what happens, you're still our son. Dragon genes or not, nothing changes that. Taeho felt tears well up in his eyes. Thanks, Dad. Outside the library windows, the sun was setting, casting an orange glow across the schoolyard where the two larger dragons still waited. News helicopters circled overhead, and the crowd beyond the school gates had grown larger. Taeho knew his life had changed forever. Tomorrow everyone would know him as the boy who sneezed fire, the boy with dragon blood. He would never be just Taiho Kim again. But as he looked at his parents' supportive faces, at Junho's excited grin and at Haru's ancient wise eyes, he felt something new growing inside him alongside the fear, a sense of wonder and possibility. Whatever he was becoming, he wouldn't face it alone. 1 week after the dragons arrived, Taiho's life had changed in ways he never could have imagined. His family's apartment building now had police guards at the entrance. News vans camped on the street. His face was on every TV channel and website. The Dragon Boy, they called him. This morning, Taiho sat in a special room at Seoul National University Hospital. Doctors had been running tests on him for days. They took blood samples, scanned his body, and asked endless questions. Today was different, though. Today he would learn the results. His parents sat beside him, both looking tired from the stress of the past week. Across from them sat Dr. Beck from the Science Ministry, Dr. Minjun Lee, a top geneticist, and Haru, who had not left Earth since his arrival. "Thank you for your patience. Taiho," Dr. Lee said, opening a folder of test results. "What we've found is remarkable." Taiho nodded, his mouth dry. Part of him still hoped this was all a mistake. "Your DNA shows clear evidence of non-human genetic material," Dr. Lee continued, turning his tablet so Taiho and his parents could see the screen. It showed 2 DNA strands side by side. The left is normal human DNA, the right is yours. See these sections highlighted in red? They don't match any known human gene patterns, but they match Draconis patterns perfectly, Haru added. About 8% of Taiho's genetic code is Draconic in origin. Taiho's mother gasped softly. "How is this possible? Neither of our families has any history of breathing fire or anything unusual." Dr. Lee nodded in understanding. "The Draconic genes appear to be recessive and can remain dormant for many generations. Both you and your husband must carry a small percentage of these genes, though they're inactive in you. When your DNA combined to create Taiho, the concentration became high enough to express these traits. Like how 2 brown-eyed parents can sometimes have a blue-eyed child," Dr. Beck explained. "Except instead of blue eyes, I got fire breath," Taiho said quietly. Haru made a sound that might have been a chuckle. "Fire breath is just the beginning. The scans show development of several draconic features in your body." Dr. Lee turned to a new page on his tablet. "Yes, we found small glands near your lungs that produce a flammable compound. When mixed with air and sparked by special cells in your throat, it creates fire. We've also noticed unusual cell clusters along your spine and shoulder blades. Wing buds," Haru said simply. Taiho's eyes widened. "I'm growing wings." "The potential for wings," Haru corrected. "Whether they fully develop depends on many factors, including your training." Taiho's father ran a hand through his hair, looking overwhelmed. "So what happens now? Will he keep changing? Is he in any danger?" "Without proper guidance, yes, there could be risks," Haru said. "The fire glands could flare up unexpectedly. The changes to his bone structure could cause pain if not managed correctly. That's why we've developed a plan," Dr. Beck interjected. "With your permission, we'd like Taiho to begin training with Haru and his associates. They understand these changes better than any human doctor could." Taiho looked at his parents anxiously. This past week had been hard on them. His mother had taken leave from her teaching job to deal with the media attention. His father had dark circles under his eyes from staying up late talking with government officials. "What about school?" his mother asked. "Education is still important. We propose a split schedule," Dr. Bayek said. "Mornings at school for regular classes, afternoons for special training. The school has agreed to create a modified program for Taiho." "And the other students?" Taiho asked, thinking of the stares and whispers he would face. "What about them?" "That's up to you," his father said gently. "You could switch to online classes if you prefer." Taiho thought about it. The idea of facing his classmates scared him, but hiding away seemed worse. And there was Junho, who had texted him support every day. "I want to go back to regular school," he decided. "I don't want to hide." His parents exchanged proud looks. "There's something else you should know," Dr. Lee said, turning to a new page in his results. "Based on genetic markers, we believe Taiho isn't the only one." The room went quiet. "What do you mean?" Taiho's mother asked. "The draconic genes appear in roughly 1 in every 10 million humans," Dr. Lee explained. With Earth's population, that means there could be several hundred people with similar genetic makeup to Taiho. Most never develop noticeable traits, Haru added. But as human technology advances and creates more triggers in the environment, we expect more awakenings. You mean more kids might start breathing fire? Taiho asked. Or showing other draconic traits, Haru confirmed. Each manifestation is unique, Dr. Beck leaned forward. This is why your cooperation is so important, Taiho. You're the first confirmed case. What we learn from you could help others. Taiho felt a strange mix of emotions. He wasn't alone, there were others like him out there. But he was the first to be discovered, which came with its own pressure. Can I ask something? Taiho said, looking directly at Haru. You said your people visited Earth thousands of years ago. Is that where the stories of dragons come from? Were those just your people? Haru's eyes gleamed with approval. Very perceptive, young one. Yes, many dragon myths across human cultures began with sightings of my ancestors. Some took full draconic form to fly or hunt. Others took human form but retained certain abilities. Over time, as we left Earth, the stories became legends. So all those fairy tales about knights fighting dragons, Taiho began. Some were based on misunderstandings, Haru said. Not all encounters between our species were peaceful, but many were. In some cultures, dragons are symbols of wisdom and good fortune. Taiho thought about this. Is that why you came back now? Because I sneezed fire? Partly, Haru said. We have maintained a distant watch over Earth for centuries. When we detected the energy signature of draconic fire in a human settlement, we knew it was time to return. But there's more, Dr. Beck added. The Draconis have proposed an official alliance with Earth. Diplomatic relations, cultural exchange, even technological sharing. Taiho's father looked surprised. And the government is considering this? Multiple governments are, Dr. Beck confirmed. A United Nations special session has been called for next month. Taiho tried to process all this information. One sneeze had not only changed his life, but potentially the course of human history. What happens tomorrow? He asked, focusing on what he could understand. When do I start training? We have prepared a facility at the university, Dr. Lee said. After your morning classes, you'll come here. Haru and another Draconis named Minji will work with you. Minji? Taiho asked, surprised by the human-sounding name. She's taken a name easy for humans to pronounce, Haru explained. She specializes in teaching young Draconis. She will be your primary instructor. As the meeting concluded, Taiho and his parents were led through a private exit to avoid the reporters. A black car with tinted windows waited to take them home. Before getting in, Taiho looked up at the clear blue sky. Somewhere up there, beyond the clouds, was the home world of the Draconis, a place his ancestors, or at least some of his genes, had come from. Are you okay? His mother asked, noticing his thoughtful expression. I think so, Taiho said. It's just a lot to take in. Yesterday I was worried about my math test. Now I'm worried about growing wings. His father put an arm around his shoulders. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. As their car pulled away from the hospital, Taiho caught a glimpse of his reflection in the window. He looked the same on the outside, a normal 13-year-old boy with messy hair and curious eyes. But inside he was changing. And somehow, despite all the fear and confusion, he was starting to feel excited about what he might become. 1 month after discovering his draconic heritage, Taiho stood on the roof of a special training facility built on the outskirts of Seoul. The morning sun warmed his face as he took deep, steady breaths. Beside him stood Minji, his draconic instructor. Unlike Haru, who maintained his dragon form most of the time, Minji often appeared almost human. Today she looked like a tall woman in her 30s with unusual golden eyes and faint blue-green scales along her temples. Only when she turned her head quickly could you see the scales shimmer in the sunlight. Focus on your spine, Minji instructed in a calm voice. Feel the energy there. In humans with draconic genes, the spine contains specialized cells that can generate the necessary transformation. Taiho closed his eyes, concentrating as he had been taught. Over the past month, he had learned to control his fire breath. He could now produce small flames at will without sneezing. But wings were a much bigger challenge. Remember, Minji continued, don't force it. The change should feel natural, like stretching a muscle you didn't know you had. Taiho nodded, focusing on the strange warm feeling between his shoulder blades. The doctors had confirmed that the wing buds were growing. Small bumps had formed on his back, hidden under his clothes. They didn't hurt, but they sometimes itched, especially when he was emotional. Behind a safety glass window, Taiho's parents watched with Dr. Bayek and several scientists. They attended every training session, supporting their son through each new development. Breathe in light. Breathe out heat, Minji said, using one of the Draconi's meditation phrases. Taiho inhaled deeply, imagining sunlight filling his lungs. As he exhaled, he directed the warm energy to his back. Suddenly, he felt a strange shifting sensation like his skin was stretching. "It's happening," Dr. Beck exclaimed from behind the glass. Taiho kept his eyes closed, focusing on the feeling. The itching intensified, then changed to a pleasant warmth that spread across his back. He felt something unfold from his shoulder blades, something light yet strong. "Open your eyes, Taiho," Minji said softly. Taiho opened his eyes and turned his head to look over his shoulder. What he saw made him gasp. A pair of small translucent wings extended from his back, glimmering with the same blue-green iridescence as Haru's scales. They weren't large, maybe 2 feet long each, but they were definitely wings. "I did it," he whispered in amazement. His mother pressed her hand against the glass, tears in her eyes. His father stood beside her, looking proud and a little scared at the same time. "Try to move them," Minji suggested. "They respond to the same mental pathways as your arms, but separately." Taiho concentrated, trying to find the right mental muscle. After a few attempts, the right wing twitched, then extended fully. The left followed a moment later. "They're beautiful," Minji said with approval. "For a first manifestation, this is exceptional control." Can I fly with these?" Taiho asked, excitement building in his voice. "Not yet," Minji cautioned. "These are just the beginning. They'll grow larger as you practice. For now, focus on making them appear and disappear at will." Over the next hour, Taiho practiced retracting his wings and bringing them out again. Each time became easier. By the end of the session, he could change in seconds. When the training ended, his parents came onto the roof to congratulate him. His mother hugged him carefully, mindful of his new appendages. "Does it hurt?" she asked, her voice full of concern. "Not at all," Taiho assured her. "It feels right, like something that was always supposed to happen." His father examined the wings with scientific curiosity. "They're so light. What are they made of?" "A special protein similar to insect chitin but much stronger," Minji explained. "As they develop, they'll become more solid and gain muscle." Dr. Beck approached with her ever-present tablet. "This is remarkable progress, Taiho. You're adapting to your abilities faster than we predicted. When will I be able to return to regular school?" Taiho asked. For the past month, he had been taking classes online, only seeing his friends through video calls. "Soon," Dr. Beck promised. "We're preparing a special back brace that will help you conceal your wings when they're retracted. And the school has been renovated to accommodate your needs." That evening, Taiho video called Junho to share his progress. His best friend was the only student from school who knew all the details of his training. "You grew wings?" Junho exclaimed, his face filling the screen. "Real wings? Show me." Taiho glanced at his bedroom door to make sure it was closed, then removed his shirt and concentrated. The wings emerged, smaller now as he was still learning to maintain them, but definitely visible. "That is the coolest thing I've ever seen," Junho said, his eyes wide. "When are you coming back to school? Everyone keeps asking about you." "What are they saying?" Taiho asked nervously. Junho shrugged. "Some kids are scared, but most are just curious. The school had an assembly about respecting differences and stuff. Oh, and they installed fire extinguishers in every classroom." Taiho laughed despite himself. "Great, that makes me feel so normal." "Normal is boring," Junho declared. "You're going to be the only kid in school with wings." After they finished talking, Taiho sat on his bed, thinking about returning to school. Would his classmates accept him? Would they treat him like a freak? Or worse, like some kind of celebrity? His thoughts were interrupted by a knock on his door. His father entered carrying a small box. "Haru dropped this off for you," he said, handing Taiho the box. "He said it's a tradition among the Draconis." Taiho opened the box carefully. Inside was a scale, a single beautiful blue-green scale that shimmered with inner light. "It's from Haru himself," his father explained. "He said that when young Draconis develop their first abilities, they receive a scale from an elder as a symbol of their heritage. Taiho held the scale carefully. It was warm to the touch and seemed to pulse slightly, like it had its own heartbeat. "There's something else you should know," his father said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "The government received a message today. They've found another child like you." Taiho looked up in surprise. "Another one? Where?" "In Brazil. A 12-year-old girl. She didn't breathe fire. Her skin began to develop scales after a high fever. The Draconis confirmed she has the same genetic markers as you." "Is she okay?" Taiho asked. His father nodded. "Yes, Haru is sending another teacher to help her. But you're still the first, Taiho. What you learn will help others like you." Taiho looked down at the scale in his hand, then at the small wings still extended from his back. 1 month ago, he had been a normal boy. Now he was part of something much bigger, a bridge between two species, a symbol of a connection that spanned thousands of years and millions of miles. "Dad," he said quietly, "I think I'm ready to go back to school." His father smiled. "I know it won't be easy. People fear what they don't understand." "Then I'll help them understand," Taiho said with newfound determination. "I'm still me, just me with wings." That night, Taiho stood at his bedroom window looking up at the stars. Somewhere up there was Sirius, the star that the Draconis called home. Part of his heritage came from that distant point of light. For the first time since he sneezed fire in class, Taiho felt truly excited about the future. He was changing, growing into something new, something that was neither fully human nor fully dragon, but something unique. And tomorrow he would take the first steps toward sharing that uniqueness with the world. 3 years passed since the day Taiho sneezed fire in science class. Now 16 years old, he stood taller, his shoulders broader, and his once childish face showing the first signs of adulthood. But the most remarkable changes weren't visible when he wore his special school uniform, designed with slits in the back that could open when needed. Today was a big day. Taiho adjusted his tie as he stood backstage at the United Nations headquarters in New York. Through a gap in the curtains, he could see hundreds of delegates from countries around the world, all gathered for this historic moment. "Nervous?" asked Haru, who stood beside him in a smaller form than usual. Only about 7 feet tall to fit comfortably in the human building. "A little," Taiho admitted. 3 years ago, I could barely talk to my class without getting scared. Now I'm speaking to the whole world." Haru's eyes crinkled in what Taiho had learned was a draconic smile. "You have grown in many ways, young one." That was true. Taiho's wings had developed fully now, spanning 12 feet when fully extended. He could fly for short distances, though he still needed more practice for longer flights. He had mastered his fire abilities too, able to produce anything from a small flame to light a candle to a controlled burst that could melt metal. But the most important growth had been in his confidence. After returning to school 3 years ago, Taiho had faced fear and curiosity from his classmates. Some parents had pulled their children out of the school. Others had requested their kids be placed in his class. Through it all, Taiho had remained patient, answering questions and showing that despite his unusual abilities, he was still just a teenager who liked video games, worried about math tests, and sometimes felt awkward at school dances. "Your parents are in the front row," Haru noted. "They look proud." Taiho peeked through the curtain again and saw his mother and father sitting in the special section reserved for honored guests. Beside them sat Junho, who had remained his loyal friend through everything. The government had arranged for them all to come to New York for this ceremony. "Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished delegates," the Secretary General's voice came through the speakers. "Today marks a historic moment in human history. 3 years ago, we learned we are not alone in the universe. The Draconis came not as invaders but as long-lost relatives, revealing an ancient connection between our species." The audience applauded politely. Taiho took deep breaths, remembering Minji's training. "Today we formalize that connection with the signing of the Earth-Dragon Cooperation Treaty," the Secretary General continued. "And who better to serve as the first official ambassador between our worlds than the young man whose sneeze started it all? Please welcome Taiho Kim, the first human draconic ambassador." The curtains parted and Taiho walked onto the stage with Haru beside him. The applause grew louder. Camera flashes lit up the room. Taiho approached the podium, adjusted the microphone, and looked out at the sea of faces. "Thank you," he began in English, which he had studied hard to perfect over the past 3 years. 3 years ago, I was just a normal 13-year-old boy worried about homework and video games. Then I sneezed fire in class, and everything changed. A gentle laugh rippled through the audience. I learned that I carried genes from an ancient time when humans and Draconis lived together on Earth. I wasn't alone. Since that day, 27 other people around the world have discovered their draconic heritage. Some can produce fire like me. Others have developed scales or enhanced senses. Each of us represents a living bridge between two intelligent species. Taiho paused, looking at his parents. His mother wiped away a tear. His father nodded encouragingly. The dragons didn't come to conquer Earth, Taiho continued. They came to reunite with long-lost family. They came to share knowledge, technology, and a vision of peaceful coexistence among the stars. He gestured to a large document on a table beside the podium. This treaty establishes official diplomatic relations between Earth and the Draconis Stellar Alliance. It includes agreements on cultural exchange, scientific cooperation, and mutual defense. But most importantly, it recognizes that our futures are connected, just as our past has been. Taiho stepped back from the podium. The Secretary General approached the table, followed by Haru. Together, they signed the treaty while cameras flashed. Then Taiho was invited to add his signature as the official ambassador. As he signed his name, Taiho thought about how far he had come. The scared boy who had hidden his wings was now helping to shape the relationship between two worlds. After the ceremony, there was a reception where delegates mingled with the Draconis representatives. Taiho found his parents and Junho in the crowd. "You did wonderfully," his mother said, hugging him tightly. "I'm so proud of you, son," his father added. Junho punched him lightly on the arm. "Not bad for a guy who used to be afraid to give class presentations." Taiho laughed. "I still get nervous. I just hide it better now." "Ambassador Kim," called a voice. Taiho turned to see Dr. Bayek approaching with a young girl and her parents. "There's someone who wanted to meet you." The girl looked about 12 with dark curly hair and warm brown skin. Taiho noticed the faint shimmer of scales along her forearms. "This is Isabella from Brazil," Dr. Beck explained. "She manifested her draconic traits 2 years ago." Taiho smiled and extended his hand. "It's nice to meet you, Isabella." The girl shook his hand shyly. "You're the reason I wasn't afraid when my scales appeared," she said in careful English. "My parents showed me videos of you talking about your wings. You made it seem normal." "It is normal," Taiho assured her. "Just a different kind of normal." As the reception continued, more people approached Taiho. Diplomats seeking his opinion on the treaty, scientists with questions about his abilities, and journalists hoping for interviews. Through it all, he remained patient and thoughtful, just as Haru and Minji had taught him. Later that evening, after the formal events had ended, Taiho stood on the balcony of his hotel room overlooking New York City. The lights of the skyscrapers sparkled like stars brought down to earth. He removed his jacket and shirt, then extended his wings, stretching them after keeping them hidden all day. A soft whoosh of air announced Haru's arrival. The dragon hovered outside the balcony, his wings beating slowly to keep him aloft. "Care to join me for a flight?" Haru asked. "The city is beautiful from above." Taiho hesitated. "Is it safe? Won't people see us?" "They might," Haru admitted. "But after today's ceremony, perhaps that's not such a bad thing. The world should see its ambassador in his full form." Taiho smiled and climbed onto the balcony railing. He had been practicing his takeoffs with Minji. With a deep breath, he leapt forward and spread his wings wide, catching the air. For a heart-stopping moment, he dropped, but then his wings found their rhythm and he soared upward to join Haru. Together they flew above the city, a dragon and a boy who was part dragon. Below, people pointed and took pictures. Some might be afraid, but others would be filled with wonder. Either way, they were seeing the future, a future where humans and Draconis shared the skies. "What happens next?" Taiho asked as they glided between buildings. "Many things," Haru replied. "Cultural exchanges, scientific missions, perhaps even joint space exploration one day. The treaty is just the beginning. And what about the others like me? The 27 you've found so far? They will need guidance," Haru said. "Perhaps from someone who has walked this path before them." Taiho understood what Haru was suggesting. His role as ambassador wouldn't just be about formal treaties and meetings. He would be a guide for others discovering their draconic heritage, helping them find their place between two worlds. As they soared higher, Taiho looked up at the night sky. Somewhere up there was Sirius, the star the Draconis called home. And here was Earth, the planet humans had built civilizations upon. He belonged to both worlds now, a bridge between stars. The human boy who sneezed fire, he said thoughtfully. I never imagined where that sneeze would lead. Sometimes the smallest moments change the course of history, Haru replied. Your sneeze opened a door that had been closed for thousands of years. Together, they banked toward the stars that shone brightly above the city lights. Stars that no longer represented unreachable distances, but destinations waiting to be explored by two species reunited after too long apart. And as Teiho flew through the night sky with his wings spread wide, he knew this wasn't an ending but a beginning. The dragons had come to claim him, not as a possession but as family. And in doing so, they had helped him claim his true self, not just human, not just dragon, but something wonderfully, uniquely both.